My 3 kids thought I was just their free nanny, chef, and private bank. They ghosted my 70th birthday. They have no clue I've changed their future forever. I just needed the final paperwork. This is how I became the CEO of my own life. Hey there! If you're ready to hear the full scoop on how I finally broke free and gave my family a major wake-up call, hit that subscribe button right now. Trust me, you don't want to miss a single part of this story. Let's get into it. I spent nearly 3 decades being Betty, the reliable high school librarian, the widow who kept things afloat after my husband Richard passed, and the mom who never said no. I retired 3 years ago at the ripe old age of 67 thinking, this is it. This is my time to chill, maybe travel, and finally get that pottery wheel spinning. Boy, was I naive. How utterly, completely naive. My retirement wasn't a time of rest. It was merely a change of employers. Before, I managed Dewey Decimal. Now, I managed my son Jason's 2 kids, my daughter Chloe's 4 Airbnb properties, and everyone's dinner calendar. Let me introduce you to the cast of characters who ran my schedule. First, there's Jason. He's my oldest, a successful guy in tech, earning serious bank, living in a suburban McMansion that costs more than my entire life savings. He's got twins, Ethan and Harper, who are 6. Jason and his wife, Brittany, are always swamped. Brittany is an influencer, which means she spends most of her time worrying about engagement rates and the perfect golden hour selfie. She can't possibly handle a school pickup because she has a brand meeting. So, 5 days a week, I'm the designated driver, snack maker, and homework helper. My small, cozy condo, which I envisioned as a peaceful retreat, now usually smells of goldfish crackers and whatever craft glitter the kids have managed to sneak in. Then there's Chloe. She's a good kid, she really is, but she's always chasing the next big hustle. Right now, it's those short-term rentals. Mom, she'll call, sounding frantic. I need you to swing by the Beacon Street spot. The cleaner bailed and the new guests check in at 4. Can you just, change the sheets, make sure the coffee pods are stocked, and maybe just wait for the handyman to fix the shower knob? Chloe lives 30 minutes away, but she needs me to be her on-call emergency co-host, always covering her butt so she doesn't lose those 5-star ratings. And finally, there's my youngest, Nick. Nick is my sweet spot, but he's currently pursuing his dream of becoming a professional musician, which translates to him needing me to cover his rent until his big break comes through. Every month, a little chunk of my modest but reliable pension goes straight into Nick's account. He always promises to pay me back when his band, The Quiet Rioters, finally lands that record deal. I love him, but sometimes I feel less like a mom and more like a never-ending Kickstarter campaign. My routine is insane. Monday, I handle Jason's twins. Tuesday, I deep clean one of Chloe's units and coordinate a package drop-off for Jason. Wednesday is always dedicated to my family dinner night, where I cook for 8 people, full roast, sides, dessert, all from scratch, of course, because Brittany is on a clean eating journey and can't have anything processed. They show up, eat, critique my mashed potatoes, a little too much butter, Betty, and bolt before the dishes are cleared. I'm usually still scraping burnt bits off the bottom of the roasting pan at 10 p.m. I remember 6 months ago, I had a brief moment of freedom. I signed up for a beginner's pottery class at the local community center, Tuesday evenings. I've wanted to work with clay forever. There's something so grounding about it. I paid the $400 fee up front, not cheap, but I considered it an investment in my sanity. I went to exactly 2 sessions. On the 3rd Tuesday, Jason called. Harper had a stomach bug, and he and Brittany had a mandatory black tie gala. Mom, you gotta do it. There's literally no one else. This is a huge networking thing for us. I tried to explain about the pottery. He just laughed. Pottery, Mom? That'll wait. This is real life. The class didn't wait. My spot was filled, and my $400 was gone, just like my dream. My one lifeline is Carol. She's my best friend from college. Carol is the opposite of me. When her husband died, she sold their big house, bought a cool little loft downtown, and started living. She's always posting pictures on social media, wine tasting in Napa, cruising the Mediterranean, looking utterly fabulous with a cocktail in hand. She calls me, and I can almost hear the pity in her voice. "Betty, honey, what are you doing?" she asked me last week. "I'm looking at your calendar. You're cleaning Chloe's guest house? Girl, you are 70 years old. You should be on a beach with a fruity drink, not scrubbing someone else's grout." I always defend them. "They need me, Carol. They're just so busy with their careers. This is what mothers do." Carol's response is always the same, delivered with that sharp, no-nonsense New Yorker tone she uses when she's telling me the hard truth. "They don't need you, Betty. They use you. There's a difference between a safety net and a cash cow, and right now you're their prize-winning dairy." I always change the subject. I have to. The truth is, Carol's words hit too close to home, but the fear of saying no and seeing my phone stay silent is paralyzing. If I'm not the indispensable mom, the available grandma, the one who solves every logistical nightmare, then who am I? Just Betty, the widow in the quiet condo. And that quiet aloneness, scares me more than any amount of exhaustion. Then came the request that would ultimately push me to the brink. It was mid-March. Jason called me, not to ask about the twins, but to ask me to come over. He had that big, charming, boyish smile on his face, the one he uses when he's about to ask for something truly ridiculous. He sat me down in his immaculate, sun-drenched kitchen. "Mom, look, I'm turning 40 in June. 40 is a huge milestone, right? I want to do something epic, something totally unforgettable. A real blowout." He leaned forward conspiratorially. "Brittany is completely slammed with her brand trip to Tulum, and Chloe, well, you know Chloe. She's always got a property crisis." I was thinking, who is the most organized, most brilliant planner I know? You, Mom. I felt that familiar knot tighten in my stomach. The mix of pride, he thinks I'm brilliant, and dread, I know this is going to consume my entire life. "You want me to plan your 40th birthday party?" I asked, already wiping a non-existent smudge off the marble counter. "Not just plan it, Mom. I need you to run it. Everything. The venue, the catering, the guest list, the whole shebang. I need your legendary attention to detail. And hey, don't stress about the cost. Obviously, I'll cover everything. You just handle the logistics, okay? Make it special, like those parties you used to throw for us when we were kids." He stood up, kissed my cheek, and bounced out the door to hit the gym, leaving me sitting in his designer kitchen with a vague promise of payment and a concrete, enormous project that was about to hijack the remaining months of my retirement. The sheer scale hit me that night. A 40th birthday party for a tech executive and an influencer. This wasn't going to be cake and balloons in the backyard. This was going to be an event. I knew it. Sure enough, the next morning, I woke up to a 7-page Google Doc from Brittany. The title was simply Jason's 40th, Non-Negotiables. I skimmed it, and my jaw dropped. Imported French champagne, a venue with rustic chic ambiance, a 3-course tasting menu from a Michelin-rated chef, a professional live band flown in, and custom-designed invitations printed on linen paper with gold foil. It was less a party and more a small wedding. I immediately started researching venues. I found the perfect spot. A restored barn with industrial modern lighting, capacity for 100 guests. It cost $3,500 just for the rental. I called Jason. "Sweetie, I need the initial deposit, at least $1,500 to secure the date. They'll lose it by the end of the week." "Oh, Mom, don't sweat it," he replied cheerfully. "We're a little tight this month. The Tulum trip was more expensive than we thought, but don't worry, I'll Venmo you next week. Just secure it." "Secure it?" He didn't answer. He just said, "Love ya, Mom," and hung up. I knew that next week was code for never. I stared at my checking account. I had a small private emergency fund, the one I had specifically saved for that dream trip to Tuscany with Carol. $2,500 was sitting there. After 2 sleepless nights, I drove to the bank. I walked out with a cashier's check made out to the venue. I used $1,500 of my own money that was supposed to buy me freedom and wine in Italy, to secure a party for my son who drives a Tesla and earns 6 figures. I sat in my car, clutching the receipt. I felt a chill run through me. It wasn't the coldness of the AC, it was the chilling realization that my children had just successfully manipulated me into paying for their own extravagant lifestyle. I had crossed a threshold, and there was no turning back now. This wasn't helping. This was being exploited. The seed of rebellion, the idea of finally taking back control, was planted right there, in that cramped parking lot. I just didn't know yet how far I was willing to let it grow. After I wrote that $1,500 check for the barn venue, securing Jason's party date with my Tuscany fund, something broke inside me. It wasn't a sudden, dramatic snap, but a quiet, internal fracture, like a hairline crack spreading across a ceramic tile. That feeling of being used didn't just hurt anymore. It galvanized me. I was done being their prize-winning dairy. It was time for the cash cow to retire. For good. The demands intensified instantly. Now that the venue was locked down, Brittany was relentless. She didn't call. She messaged, usually before 7 a.m. or after 10 p.m., always with the same demanding tone. Never a please or thank you, just commands. Betty, have you finalized the invitations? Remember the linen paper with the gold foil emboss? If they don't look exactly like the Pinterest board, it's going to totally ruin the aesthetic. And BTW, we need 120, not 100. Jason forgot his whole college frat brotherhood. I found a custom printer who specialized in that bougie, expensive foil work. For 120 invitations on imported linen paper, the quote came back at $200. I sent the figure to Jason with a gentle nudge. Sweetie, the invitations are pricey. Can you send me the money for this plus the venue deposit? His response came 2 days later, a cheerful, breathless voice memo. Mom, you're a rock star. That sounds perfect. Seriously, don't worry about the money right now. We had an unexpected tax bill, and I had to book Brittany's last-minute flight for her brand partnership. Total surprise. Just use the card, and I'll settle up the entire bill right before the party. Promise. Use the card. He meant my debit card. He meant my savings. He literally just waved away a $2,700 bill, $1,500 venue plus $200 invites, like it was lunch money. I went back to the bank. This time I didn't feel chilled. I felt numb. I withdrew another $200. As the teller handed me the crisp bills, I felt a wave of clarity. I wasn't sacrificing for my son anymore. I was collecting evidence. Every dollar I spent was a tally mark in my ledger of betrayal. I paid the printer. It wasn't just Jason and Brittany sucking the oxygen out of my life either. Everyone got in on the action. The next day, Chloe called. She wasn't frantic this time, just annoyed. Mom, you won't believe this, but I bought a new investment property in Austin. Super hot market. A total steal. But I need someone to go over there, coordinate the first round of cleaning and staging, and just make sure the contractor doesn't pull any shady stuff. I've already booked your flight. It leaves Friday morning. It's a short trip. Just 3 days, rent-free, ha! I know you love Austin. I stood there holding the phone, staring at the calendar. Friday? I had my long-delayed annual physical scheduled for Friday. I told her I couldn't, explaining about the doctor. Mom, seriously? A physical? You're healthy as a horse. You can reschedule that? This is a 6-figure investment, Mom! I need eyes on the ground, and I can't trust anyone but you. Plus, think of the miles you'll earn. She made it sound like I was getting a bonus, not losing 3 days of my life and postponing a necessary health check. I sighed, rescheduling my appointment to October. I went to Austin. I spent 3 grueling days managing a chaotic contractor and scrubbing down a dusty, empty house. Chloe never even asked if I had fun. Meanwhile, Nick's big break hadn't materialized. I got a text from him with a lot of emojis and a plea for an advance on his rent. Hey, Mom, love ya. The rent's coming up, but we also got hit with a surprise studio session fee. Super legit opportunity for real. Can you spot me $1,500 this month instead of the usual $1,000? It'll be the last time, promise. Gonna be worth it when I'm famous. $500, another unplanned expense. My savings were hemorrhaging. I was now $3,800 in the hole for Jason's party, plus an extra $500 for Nick. I felt sick. The actual breaking point came 2 weeks later when I tackled the catering. The 7-page document specified Chef Julian's team, the Michelin-rated folks. I finally got the quote, $6,500 for the full package, including the staff, China rental, and the special 3-protein, vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free menu Brittany demanded. I called Jason immediately. Not a message, a real physical phone call. He answered on the second ring, sounding rushed. Mom, what's up? I'm hitting the Peloton, can't talk long. Jason, the catering is $6,500. $6,500. That is crazy expensive. We need to look at another vendor. There's a wonderful local company that quoted me $3,000 for a perfectly lovely buffet. He scoffed. An actual scoff. A buffet, Mom? Seriously? This is my 40th. Brittany would kill me. Look, I told you I'd cover it. Just book Chef Julian. I'll transfer you $500 right now to tide you over, okay? Just secure the contract. The $500 hit my account instantly. The first money I had seen from him in this entire process. It felt like an insultingly small bone tossed to a hungry dog. I had already spent nearly $4,000, and he was giving me $500 and expecting me to book a $6,500 expense on my own dime. Jason, I don't have $6,000 just sitting around. I've already drained my travel fund. My voice was shaking, and I could hear the desperate tremor in my tone. Look, Mom, you're stressing too much. It's fine. It's just a few months until the party. You're retired. You don't have any big expenses, right? You'll get it back. Just tell Chef Julian you're putting down the deposit. He knows I'm good for it. He didn't know I was good for it. He knew I was a doormat. He hung up a second later, signing off with a quick, "Gotta go, Mom." Ride is getting intense. I stared at the $500 transfer on my banking app. I had spent $3,800, he had contributed $500, and he wanted me to commit another $6,000. It hit me like a physical punch. Carol was right. I wasn't just a safety net. I was an ATM with a heart, and they were bankrupting me emotionally and financially. I didn't book Chef Julian. Instead, I drove over to Carol's loft without calling first. She opened the door, took one look at my face, my pale, tired face, and ushered me in. I told her everything. The venue, the linen invitations, the $3,800 I'd spent, the $6,500 catering demand, Nick's extra rent, Chloe's Austin trip. I didn't cry, but my voice was flat and dead. Carol just sat there, listening intently, nodding that sharp, knowing nod. When I finished, she didn't offer pity. She offered a plan. Betty, this is bigger than $3,800. This is about them seeing you as property. And you have to show them once and for all that the property is under new management. She told me I needed to see a financial lawyer. She gave me the name of her estate lawyer, Ms. Chen. Go to Ms. Chen, draft a new will, a major change, something that will make them sit up and realize that the bank vault is closed. Don't tell them a thing. Just keep smiling, keep nodding, keep planning that party, and collect your evidence. Be the best planner they've ever seen. But do it all with a secret. That night, I went home, and for the first time in years, I didn't worry about dishes or glitter or Nick's rent. I spent 2 hours researching the specific Florida resort where Brittany was taking her brand trip in June, the same month as Jason's party. I needed to know their exact whereabouts. I was still going to plan the party, but now it wasn't for Jason. It was for me. The next morning, I called Ms. Chen's office. I had an appointment booked for the following Tuesday. I hung up the phone feeling a profound sense of peace. The old Betty, the fearful Betty, the cash cow, was officially retired. A new Betty had just punched in, and she had a master plan. That following Tuesday, I wore my best charcoal suit and drove downtown to Ms. Chen's office. The air conditioning in the high-rise felt arctic, but for the first time in months, I didn't feel cold. I felt purposeful. Ms. Chen was sharp, maybe 40 years old, with eyes that saw right through the polite facade. She was a woman who dealt with legacies and betrayals every single day. "So, Betty," she said, folding her hands neatly on the mahogany desk, "Carol tells me you're looking to update your estate plan. And you mentioned the update might be significant?" I took a deep breath, the air thick with the scent of expensive leather and money. "Significant is an understatement, Ms. Chen. I want to remove Jason, Chloe, and Nick as the primary beneficiaries of my liquid assets, my retirement savings, and my condo." She didn't flinch. "Lawyers are good at that." She just waited. "I want to leave $50,000, divided equally among my 3 grandchildren, in an educational trust, accessible only when they turn 25. I continued. "And the rest, everything else, I want it liquidated upon my death and donated to the Public Library Foundation. That's where I worked for 27 years. They actually appreciate the investment." Ms. Chen finally raised an eyebrow. "That's a bold move, Betty. You understand that this will leave your children essentially nothing from your estate, apart from their children's trust fund. They will certainly contest this." "They will scream," I corrected her, a grim satisfaction settling over me. "But they won't win. Richard and I established my assets as separate property years ago, and my mind is perfectly sound. I want to include an ironclad clause, what they call a no-contest clause, specifically detailing the reasons for my decision. I want it all documented. The $3,800 spent on Jason's party, the money loaned to Nick that was never returned, the trips for Chloe, the rescheduled medical appointments. I want a ledger attached." "A declaration of intent," Ms. Chen murmured, scribbling on a pad. "We can absolutely draft that." "This isn't about spite, Betty. This is about establishing a pattern of financial exploitation that led you to believe your assets would be better used elsewhere. No, Ms. Chen, it's absolutely about spite. It's about being seen. It's about being more than a piggy bank. But let's call it a declaration of intent for the legal forms." We spent 2 hours working through the details. I left her office feeling lighter than I had in years. The betrayal still hurt, but now it had a purpose. It was the fuel for my freedom. My will was a loaded gun, and I was holding the trigger. I went back to the party planning with renewed vigor. I was playing a character now. Betty, the sweet, dependable, slightly stressed mom who just wants to make her son's 40th birthday perfect. And my performance? Oscar-worthy, I didn't book Chef Julian's $6,500 catering. Instead, I told Jason I had managed to negotiate a killer deal with him and that the deposit was paid. In reality, I booked the local, wonderful company that quoted the $3,000 buffet. I paid the full $3,000 with another withdrawal from my savings. I figured $3,000 was a small price to pay for the look on their faces later. The money wasn't lost. It was an investment in my future peace. I dealt with Brittany's ridiculous demands like a project manager. She wanted imported calla lilies from Ecuador. I found a beautiful local flower farm that specialized in elegant white roses that looked 10 times better, telling Brittany they were a new exclusive hybrid that Chef Julian insisted on. She bought it. She bought all of it. The key was to always sound stressed, always sound like I was sacrificing my time, but always deliver. That kept them off the scent. Chloe, meanwhile, continued to treat me like free labor. She needed me to manage her social media calendar while she went on a 2-week digital detox retreat in Utah. "It's super simple, Mom. Just post the pre-written captions and reply to DMs with the canned responses. It'll just be a couple of hours a day." A couple of hours a day meant I was glued to my phone, dealing with frantic guests checking in, angry maintenance requests, and coordinating her virtual assistant. My wrist ached. I did it all, smiling when she called from her retreat to ask if I had remembered to water her avocado plant. But the final straw, the one that truly sealed their fate, came 3 weeks before Jason's party. He called, not with a thank you, but with a logistical nightmare. "Mom, bad news. Brittany and I had a huge conflict on our June calendar. Her brand partnership in Florida, the one for the resort opening, Moved up a week. It's now the weekend of my 40th. We can't miss it. It's a huge deal for her brand portfolio. I felt the blood drain from my face. Wait, Jason. You're telling me that after all this planning, all the money spent, you're not going to be at your own birthday party? No, Mom, I am. But we can only be there for like the first hour. It's a red-eye flight from Miami. We're gonna land, hit the party, say hi, cut the cake, and then bounce back to the airport right away. It's gonna be tight, but we'll make it a whirlwind 41st hour. He chuckled, proud of his scheduling genius. And listen, here's the favor. I need you to host. Seriously, host. Like, handle the speeches, make sure the DJ plays the right tracks, and give the final toast. It's going to be packed, so we need someone to hold down the fort. You're the best, Mom! We're counting on you to make it look like we're still there. He was telling me, his mother, that he and his wife were prioritizing a social media brand trip over the party I had funded, planned, and nearly bankrupted myself for. He wanted me to stand in as the host, the fill-in son, so his guests wouldn't realize he cared more about his wife's Instagram presence than his own milestone birthday. I kept my voice calm, flat. Sure, Jason, I can handle the speeches. I knew I could count on you. You're literally a lifesaver. Gotta go, just book the flight, total chaos. He hung up. I didn't scream. I didn't break down. I just walked over to my desk, picked up my old planner, and called Carol. Carol, I said, my voice steady. I need you to book 2 tickets to Tuscany. First class. I want a suite overlooking the vineyards. I want the whole 9 yards. Can you leave on June 14th? June 14th? Carol asked, her voice laced with curiosity. Isn't Jason's party the 15th? Yes, I replied, looking at the invitation sitting on my counter. And I'm going to need you to drop the invitations for that party in the mail on June 13th. That way, they all arrive the day after the party. I smiled. My revenge wasn't going to be silent. It was going to be expensive, elegant, and perfectly executed. Just like Jason and Brittany wanted. But the guest list was about to change dramatically. My final act of service was about to begin. The 3 weeks leading up to June 15th were the most peaceful I had experienced since Richard died. The fear was gone. The paralysis was gone. I was operating purely on adrenaline and spite, and let me tell you, it's a killer cocktail. I was the perfect mole, the ultimate inside woman. I finalized every detail of Jason's fake party with a serene, almost unnerving calm. I called the caterers, the wonderful local ones who thought they were serving a high-end buffet. I confirmed the order for 120 guests, specifying the elegant white roses, which Brittany thought were exclusive hybrids, and the linen tablecloths. I even booked a fantastic jazz trio that Jason had vetoed in favor of a pricey, terrible DJ he'd seen at a bachelor party. I figured good music would be wasted on an empty barn, but at least the vendor would get a full paycheck. Every single person I dealt with was paid in full, on time, with the money Jason thought he was going to pay me back. The total cost I bore personally for this spectacular event reached $6,000, not including the countless hours of planning and driving. The ledger was fat, happy, and ready for its grand reveal. Throughout this period, my children were completely oblivious, lost in their own main character syndrome. They just saw Mom checking things off the list. Jason was so slammed with his Florida preparation, lining up Instagram stories and coordinating resort access, that he didn't even ask about the final catering bill. He just texted, "Just use the card, Mom." "Total chaos here!" I replied, "Done, sweetie. I'll secure." It wasn't a lie. The caterer was secure. Chloe, true to form, needed one final colossal favor a week before I was set to leave. She called me, sounding frantic, saying she had a major listing in Malibu fall through, and she needed to fly out there immediately to schmooze the seller back into signing. "Mom, I hate to do this," she wailed, and I almost laughed because she definitely didn't hate it. "But can you move into my apartment for the week? I need you to be here to let in the dog walker, the mail guy, and my personal chef who is prepping meals for my return. The alarm system is a nightmare, and I can't trust anyone else with the codes. I'll cover your gas, I promise." She needed a house sitter, dog coordinator, and security guard, all so she could chase a commission. She was going to cover my gas. The absolute audacity. "You got it, sweetie," I told her, my voice syrupy sweet. "Just send me the codes." I spent the week before my trip living in Chloe's ridiculously luxurious apartment, watering her avocado plant and fielding calls from her virtual assistant. It felt like one last final act of servitude, a proper send-off for the old Betty. I meticulously documented every single request in a little notebook, right next to the lawyer's ledger. The morning of June 14th, the day of my grand escape, was a whirlwind of choreographed deceit. I packed a small, elegant carry-on, leaving behind the sensible, orthopedic shoes I usually wore and swapping them for some chic Italian leather flats I'd bought online. I felt like a spy going on a permanent vacation. Jason and Brittany were leaving for the airport early that morning to catch their flight to Florida. I drove over to their McMansion one last time to check on the twins. Brittany, looking totally exhausted and wearing designer shades indoors, barely looked up from her enormous suitcase. "Mom, you're the best!" Just a reminder, the venue opens at 4 p.m. tomorrow. The caterers arrive at 5 p.m. The flowers are set to be delivered at 3 p.m. And make sure the jazz trio knows not to play the saxophone too loud during the cocktail hour. "It's too jarring." "I have everything under control, Brittany," I assured her, smiling faintly. "Don't you worry about a thing." Jason gave me a hurried, distracted hug. "You're a lifesaver, Mom. Seriously, just give the speech, tell everyone we're stuck in airport hell, and we'll see you Sunday night, okay?" "We love you." "I love you too, Jason," I replied honestly. I did love the little boy he used to be. I was saying goodbye to the man he had become. I handed him an envelope. "Here's the security deposit key for the barn," I said. "And here's a little card I wrote you. Just a little something for your 40th. The card was blank inside, but the envelope held a single, small piece of paper, the official receipt for the $6,000 I had personally spent on his party. He didn't even glance at it. He just shoved the envelope into his travel backpack. I went back to my condo, grabbed my small suitcase, and walked out the door, leaving my condo key in the hands of my wonderful neighbor, who was under strict instructions to water my plants and not answer any calls from a familiar set of phone numbers. I met Carol at the airport. We bypassed the regular check-in lines and sashayed right up to the first-class counter. Carol was beaming, looking utterly chic in a wide-brimmed hat. "Ready to ditch the drama, Betty?" she whispered, grinning. "Ready to become the CEO of my own life," I replied. We boarded the plane, settled into our ridiculously comfortable seats, and the flight attendant handed me a sparkling glass of champagne. As the plane taxied down the runway, I opened my phone one last time. I sent one final message, a group text to Jason, Chloe, and Nick. "I have taken care of everything for the party. You don't need to worry about a thing. I won't be able to make it to the barn tomorrow, but I made sure everything is exactly as you wanted it. The barn is ready, the food is ordered, and the guests will arrive at 7 p.m. Hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the consequences." I hit send. Then I switched my phone to airplane mode, took a long sip of champagne, and watched my old life shrink beneath the clouds. The plane lifted off on June 14th, leaving behind a perfectly planned, beautifully catered, elegantly decorated, and completely empty barn for June 15th. The invitations, mailed just an hour earlier by Carol, were now chugging along in the postal system, scheduled to arrive on Monday, June 17th. Somewhere far below, in the middle of the Atlantic, Jason and Brittany were oblivious, focused on their brand trip. Chloe was closing a deal in Malibu. Nick was recording his latest track, likely still $1,500 short on rent. None of them knew that tomorrow, the 120 guests they thought were coming would simply not show, and they wouldn't know why until Monday morning. It was going to be total chaos, and I wasn't going to be there to clean it up. I was finally free. June 15th. Jason's party day. I woke up not to the frantic chime of an early text from Brittany or the heavy expectation of a day of labor, but to the soft golden light of the Tuscan sun streaming through the windows of our villa. I stretched out in a bed that smelled of fresh linen and rosemary. Carol was already up, sitting on the terrace, sipping espresso and looking out over a rolling landscape of vineyards. "Morning, CEO," Carol greeted me, handing me a ridiculously perfect cup of Italian coffee. "Morning, partner," I replied, taking a blissful sip. The day was dedicated to pure, unadulterated pleasure. We ate fresh pastries, drove to a local winery, and spent the afternoon tasting Sangiovese and laughing until my sides ached. The old Betty would have been checking her watch, making sure the flowers arrived at the barn on time. The new Betty was too busy learning the Italian word for stupendous. Around 7 p.m. local time, which was 1 p.m. back in LA, meaning the caterers were setting up, I found myself watching the sunset over the hills. I felt a strange mixture of calm and delicious anticipation. The party, the beautiful, catered, extravagantly funded party, was scheduled to start in 6 hours. I had kept my phone on airplane mode. No texts, no calls, no social media, just peace. Meanwhile, back in the States, the chaos was beginning at 6 p.m. LA time, midnight in Tuscany. The jazz trio was in the barn, expertly playing a cool Miles Davis piece. The catered buffet, the 3-protein menu with all the vegan and gluten-free options, was perfectly arranged on linen-covered tables. The exclusive hybrid white roses adorned every surface. Everything was perfect. Except for one thing, the 120 guests. The only people in the venue were the paid staff, patiently waiting for the host to arrive. At 7:30 p.m., the lead caterer, a lovely professional named Donna, called Jason's cell. She called Brittany's cell, no answer. They were still at the resort opening in Florida, trying to capture the perfect sponsored content. By 8 p.m., Donna called Michael's emergency contact, which, of course, was me. She got the automated message that my phone was unavailable. Frustrated, she tried his sister, Chloe. Chloe was still in Malibu, having just closed the real estate deal she'd flown out for. She answered the phone with her usual professional, slightly brittle tone. "Chloe, this is Donna from Elite Catering. We are at the barn. It's 8 p.m. and we have a 3-hour window. We have 120 prepared meals and 0 guests. The food is starting to cool. Is there a delay we should know about?" Chloe's high-pressure facade shattered instantly. 0 guests? That's impossible! Jason planned this months ago. Has anyone seen the invitations? Donna sounded bewildered. "I wouldn't know, ma'am. But if no one arrives in the next hour, we legally have to start packing up. We cannot leave $6,500 worth of food unattended." Chloe hung up and immediately launched a furious 3-way video call with Jason and Nick. Jason, bleary-eyed and suntanned in Florida, looked shocked. "What are you talking about, Chloe?" "0 guests? The party's tonight. Mom said she handled everything." "Mom is MIA, Jason!" "That group text she sent? It wasn't a joke. And what about the invitations? Did you mail them?" Chloe shrieked, her face turning bright red in the little video window. Jason scrambled, grabbing the envelope I'd given him at the airport, the one with the security key and the receipt. He ripped it open. He saw the official receipt for $6,000 I had personally spent. He was so focused on the money, he didn't even register the date on the receipt. She spent $6,000 of her own money. "The receipt is right here. She paid everything." "But I thought she was going to give the speech." "She was supposed to be there," Jason stammered, holding up the receipt like a toxic piece of evidence. Nick, who had been pulled away from his mixing board, was instantly focused on the financial disaster. Wait. $6,000, Jace? You never paid her back the $2,500 advance I got? How much is she in the hole?" "That's irrelevant right now, Nick. We have a barn full of fancy food, a jazz band, and 0 people. This is a catastrophic failure," Chloe yelled. "Did you seriously trust Mom to mail 120 invitations on time, Jace? That's the most boring detail. And where the heck is she?" Jason was frantically calling my number, only to get my sweet pre-recorded voicemail. Brittany, pale now, realized the social and professional fallout. "Jason, what about my contacts? My sponsors? This is going to look terrible. A totally empty 40th birthday party? It looks like we have no friends." They spent the rest of the night, Saturday night, in a spiraling vortex of blame. Jason blamed me for not showing up. Chloe blamed Jason for not following up on the invitations. Nick was quietly calculating how much of the $6,000 was his responsibility. They eventually managed to contact the caterer and pay the jazz trio a cancellation fee, but the food had to be donated or tossed. $6,000, my $6,000, was literally thrown in the trash. The event was a complete and utter social disaster. Sunday was filled with desperate, unsuccessful attempts to contact me. They tried Carol. Carol's phone was also switched off. They called my neighbor, who, under strict instructions, simply said, "Oh, Betty left town for a few weeks. She didn't say where. She seems fine." The climax of their panic came on Monday morning. It started with a casual text from Jason's college friend, Mark. "Dude, what's up with the late invite? Got your cool linen card today? Party was Saturday? Did I miss it? What a bummer." Then Chloe got a call from a client she was trying to impress. "I just got Jason's gorgeous party invitation in the mail. Such beautiful paper. A day late, I guess. Hope it was fun." The truth hit them with the force of a wrecking ball. The mail, the slow, reliable, old-fashioned mail, had delivered the final crushing blow. Betty hadn't forgotten to mail the invitations. She had intentionally mailed them on Friday, June 14th, ensuring that the entire guest list received their elaborate, gold-embossed invitations 2 days after the actual event. It wasn't a mistake. It was precision. It was deliberate. The floodgates of messages opened. My phone, still in Tuscany, buzzed constantly. Jason was furious, Chloe was hysterical, and Nick was calculating the lawyer fees. They finally understood the consequences. The entire family had been publicly humiliated. $6,000 of my money was gone, and their safety net had simply vanished. That afternoon, Carol and I were sitting by the villa pool. I finally turned my phone on, just for a second, watching the hundreds of unread notifications pour in. I read the latest voice message from Jason. His voice was ragged, not angry, but laced with a dawning fear. "Mom." I opened the receipt. And the card. I saw the date on the invitations. This wasn't an accident. "Where are you?" "You need to call us. We need to talk about the money." "Mom, this isn't funny. Where is the will? Are you okay?" I closed my phone, the silence of the Tuscan countryside enveloping me once more. I wasn't just okay. I was fantastic. The chaos I had created was a beautiful symphony of freedom. My old life had burned to the ground, and I was sitting here, drinking Chianti, watching the embers glow. The final part of the plan was about to be put into action. I spent 2 glorious weeks in Tuscany. Carol and I explored Florence, took a cooking class in a farmhouse, and drank enough wine to forget what the inside of a Target looked like. My phone remained off. I was unreachable, unbothered, and completely unburdened. But every vacation has an end, and this one was merely the prelude to my real liberation. I flew back to LA on a Tuesday, tanned, rested, and ready for war. Carol had arranged everything. The final board meeting, as she called it, was scheduled for 4 p.m. at Ms. Chen's intimidatingly expensive high-rise office. I had sent one and only one message to my children from the airport. "Be at this address at 4 p.m. If you want to discuss the will, you will be there." I knew the word will would be the ultimate bait. It was the only thing they truly cared about. I arrived with Carol at 3:45 p.m. Ms. Chen, looking sharp and unyielding in a dark pantsuit, was already in the conference room. The large mahogany table was set with water glasses and legal pads. On the table, front and center, was my 3-ring binder, the Betty Ledger. At 4:05 p.m., the door burst open and my 3 children tumbled in. Looking frantic, sleep-deprived, and furious, Jason, who usually looked so put together, had stress acne on his chin. Chloe's hair was a mess, and she was vibrating with anger. Nick just looked defeated, his eyes darting between me and the lawyer, clearly calculating his losses. "Mom, where the hell have you been?" Jason exploded, his voice cracking. "We've been calling for 2 weeks. Do you have any idea the humiliation you caused? The money you wasted?" "My money, Jason. Not yours, I said calmly, motioning for them to sit. Please take a seat. This is Ms. Chen, my attorney. And you know Carol? They sat down reluctantly, looking like they'd been called to the principal's office. What is this, Mom? A joke? Chloe snapped, gesturing to Ms. Chen. You're going to sue us? We're your family. No, Chloe, I'm not suing you, I said, my voice cold and even. I'm simply reading you the minutes from the last meeting. Ms. Chen, if you would. Ms. Chen put on her glasses and looked at the three of them with zero emotion. I am here today to inform you of the changes made to your mother's estate, specifically the dissolution of the previous family trust and the execution of the new, finalized last will and testament of Betty Miller. A cold silence fell over the room. Dissolution? Nick whispered, his face going pale. Mom, what did you do? Your mother has restructured her assets, Ms. Chen continued, to reflect her priorities. The primary change is this: her liquid assets, including her retirement funds, savings, and the proceeds from the sale of her condo, which is currently in escrow and closes next week, will no longer be divided among you. She's giving it to her. Jason suddenly yelled, pointing a shaking finger at Carol. This is her fault. She manipulated you. Carol just raised an elegant eyebrow and sipped her water. Carol gets nothing, Jason, I said. Except my thanks. Then who? Chloe demanded. Who gets it? The entirety of your mother's liquid estate, valued at approximately $2.1 million, Ms. Chen stated, is to be bequeathed to a single entity. The Los Angeles Public Library Foundation, specifically for the funding of adult literacy programs. The collective gasp sucked the air out of the room. The library? Chloe stammered, her voice an octave too high. You're giving our inheritance, our home, to a library? It's not your inheritance, sweetie. It's my money, I reminded her. And yes, I've always loved books. They never ask for anything in return. You can't do this, Jason roared, slamming his fist on the table. We'll fight this. We'll contest the will. You're clearly not of sound mind. You're vindictive and senile. Ah, Ms. Chen said, tapping the large binder in front of her. I was hoping you'd bring that up. This is what we call the Betty Ledger. Your mother, being a meticulous former teacher, has kept a detailed record of her unpaid services and financial contributions to you all over the last 5 years. She opened the binder. We have invoices, Jason, for the $6,000 for the party you never paid for. We have a log of the 312 hours of free childcare, valued at $30 an hour, totaling $9,360. We have receipts for groceries, utilities, and co-pays. She turned to Chloe. We have a detailed log of your mother's time as your unpaid personal assistant, house sitter, and pet sitter. We have the $500 advance for Nick. We have... Okay, we get it, Nick interrupted, holding his head in his hands. The point, Mr. Miller, Ms. Chen said, is that should you choose to contest this will on the grounds of undue influence or lack of capacity, we will be forced to countersue your entire estate for these outstanding debts, which total, she checked a summary sheet, $80,400 plus interest, and of course my legal fees. They stared, trapped. It was a perfect ironclad cage. If they fought for the money, they would be publicly exposed and financially ruined for the exploitation they'd spent years committing. But the house, Chloe whispered, tears finally welling in her eyes. You're selling our childhood home? It stopped being a home, Chloe, when you all started treating it like an ATM and me like the teller, I said, finally speaking directly to them. For years I let you do it. I was so terrified of being alone, so desperate for you to need me, that I let you turn me into a doormat. A walking, talking bank account. I wasn't your mother. I was your service provider. I stood up, grabbing the ledger. The party, Jason, was the final invoice. You didn't just want my money and my time. You wanted my dignity. You wanted me to stand in an empty barn and lie for you, to cover for your own selfishness while you took a sponsored trip. You didn't see a mother. You saw a fixer. Well, I fixed it. I looked at all three of them one by one. The anger was gone, replaced by a deep, profound pity. There is one provision, I said, walking to the door. I've set up a small, untouchable trust for my grandchildren. It's for their education only. You three will never be able to touch a dime of it. Mom, wait, Jason said, standing up. His voice was different now, scared. You can't just leave. Where will you live? What about us? I turned at the doorway, Carol beside me, smiling. That's the beauty of it, sweetie. I don't have to worry about you anymore. You are all adults. You're smart, ambitious, and ruthless. You'll be fine. I looked at the three of them, a tableau of shocked entitlement. They weren't my children anymore. They were just people who used to know me. As for me, I said, adjusting the collar of my new linen blazer, I'm moving to Tuscany. Carol and I found a small villa to rent. I'm going to learn Italian, drink wine, and finally, read my books in peace. This meeting is adjourned. I walked out of that high-rise office, leaving them to argue over the bill they could never pay. For the first time in my life, I wasn't a mother, a wife, a caregiver, or a cash cow. I was just Betty, and I was free.